Litmus is a title sponsor because I asked them to be a title sponsor. I flew out to their location earlier this year, and I met with John and I met with Vatzel. When they originally approached me in 2019, 2020, I had a meeting with their executive leadership. Vatzel wasn't in the meeting, but there were other people in the meeting, and like my first impression was, wow, this is really amazing technology. You know, who here uses Litmus or has even kicked the tires? Okay, so it's not a lot. There's a bunch of opportunity here. The original amazing thing about Litmus was how they were leveraging artificial intelligence in the very early to do the first 90% of driver development. So they were able to do drivers in like an hour. And they have stories about writing drivers on flights to customers in Europe. They were using artificial intelligence 6-7 years ago to reverse engineer protocols and get the driver written 90% of the way and then have their engineers do the last mile. And so that's how they went from 0 drivers to a couple hundred drivers overnight. But in that original meeting that I had with Litmus, my takeaway was they're developing this company for an exit. Like they want exponential growth and they're going to sell it. And so I'm not going to sign up for that. I love your technology, but I'm not going to promote your product if, you know, I'm not going to tell people I really like it, and I'm not going to use it if you're going to sell it to somebody I can't stand, like what just happened with PTC selling ThingWorx. And PTC said this to all their customers. That's what they did. I mean, it's so screwed up. You guys want to know why I go on YouTube and I say the stuff I do. It's those decisions. It's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. It's literally a world-class fuck you to manufacturers. That's what it is. It's unacceptable. A couple years later, Vatzel reaches out to me and he says, hey man, I really would like for you to take a second look at our technology. And I was frank with him. I'm like, listen, you don't have to convince me on the tech, man. The issue is I think you're selling, you're gonna exit. And he says, we are not. I founded this company. I slept on couches in Silicon Valley. He tells me the whole story. And I say, if you give me your word, you are not developing this company to exit in the next 5 years, then I'll promote the tech. And he said, I give you my word. So then we go in deep dive. We go, okay, what is the impact of Litmus? Like how can Litmus really help manufacturers? And we go out to Silicon Valley last year, and we spend a couple days with them, and they answer every question. I asked some really hard questions that clearly their team were uncomfortable with. And Vatzel answered every single one of them, or encouraged someone in the room to answer the question. And if you look at the technology they developed over the last 2 years, it is next level. What you guys are going to see here today is the evolution of connectivity all the way through information platform through to AI enablement. That's what you're going to see. I haven't seen the presentation, but I do know the problem they're solving. So those of you who raised your hand and said you're Kepware customers, okay? Everyone has asked me, Walker, what am I supposed to do? I'm not telling you to get rid of Kepware, but I am telling you to do this. And this is something you must do. You have to document your exposure. You have to say, let's assume, for the sake of argument, TPG is going to take Kepware, they're going to wrap it inside a Prophecy, they're going to lay ThingWorx on top of it, and they're going to buy another AI company. Hint, hint, hint. And then they are going to rape us. Your licensing's going up 100%. Take it to the fucking bank. It's going up 100%. 25% in the next 5 months, 60 to 80% in the next 12 months, 100% in the next 18. That is a guarantee. So number one, map your exposure. Put it on paper. This is our exposure. Number two, Develop a plan if I had to migrate. I want to stay with what I've got. But if I've got to migrate, what would it look like? What are the steps that I have to go through? What would I have to document? Who would I have to talk to? And then number 3, calculate a cost, a conversion cost. That third one is you need the first 2 to be able to do the third, and the third one's the one that's going to matter the most. Because you have to be able to compare total cost of ownership of migrating to some other connectivity platform with what you are now paying. Here's another option you could do. You could not believe me, wait a year, wait until it's 100% increase, then believe me, and then do those 3 steps. And believe me, it pains me to say this. There's nobody in the country who loves that product more than me. It's so fucked up. And by the way, the reason I'm saying this is because I know all of you care. I know that most of the people who come up here and wear suits and they talk all professional, they're never going to talk about the competition. They're never going to say something negative about anything. I don't care because I know how all of you talk at work. I know exactly what you say in the break room or in your office or in the place where other ears can't hear. And by the way, that's the place where all the greatest ideas come from and where the solutions are manifested from. So they are a title sponsor because I asked them to be a title sponsor. I asked the team to hold a spot. There is no more important presentation that you are going to see this week than the one you're about to see. And it is certainly the one that has the greatest implication because you cannot digitally transform without connect. It's impossible. It's where it starts. And if you are already connected, what are the implications to you when your costs are going to go up by a factor of 2 or 3 or 4 for just connect? Okay? All right, any questions about that in my last 5 seconds? Does anybody disagree? Raise your hand if you disagree with me. Look at that. Universal acceptance. That never happens. All right, with that, we have Litmus presenting. We're going to show a quick video, and then Vatsel's going to take it.
Litmus is the edge data platform for end-to-end industrial data. Most industrial AI initiatives never make it to production. That's because plant floor systems weren't built for modern AI. To bridge the gap, teams rely on point solutions, but more tools and vendors only create inconsistency. What's missing is an edge-first data foundation, a complete pipeline connecting OT, IT, and AI. As sites and vendors multiply, complexity compounds. Without a data foundation, AI initiatives stall and ROI doesn't materialize. AI only works with consistent contextualized data at scale. That's the gap Litmus is built to solve. We turn raw OT data into a unified real-time foundation. Every layer of the data pipeline is built into one platform, making true end-to-end possible. We connect to any OT system, normalize and contextualize data at the source, and deliver trusted data through a unified platform. No lock-in, no fragile pipelines, just trusted data built to scale from 5 to hundreds of sites. So why make it complicated when you could have it streamlined? Unlock value fast, hours to connect, days to deploy, weeks to ROI. Litmus, the edge data foundation for industrial AI at scale.
Perfect. Okay, good morning, everyone. It's our honor to be here. First of all, Walker, thank you very much for the introduction and the whole Industry 4.0 team. Once again, I started my career as an automation engineer, and I'm really proud of what Litmus has become and where we are right now. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for like the stage that you have created. It is just fantastic. The amount of efforts that went into creating this event, getting the community together. So thank you. I'll take first 3 minutes or so. 6 months ago, when Industry 4.0 team, they came to Litmus office, and they're like, we don't even know what Litmus does. And that's very common, common question that we normally get, which is, in which mold do you fit? We broke all the molds. Like, do we fit in the connectivity? Do you fit in the ops? Do you fit in the AI? Do you fit in intelligence? So in next 3 minutes or so, I'm going to reintroduce Litmus to everyone. I'm Vatsal Shah. I'm co-founder and CEO at Litmus. Founded the company with John Yunus right here about 10 years ago now. And we have been on 10 years of relentless innovation. We started with a simple idea. We started with a simple idea that how do we liberate the data from the manufacturing environment? That was the first day. Bought the PLC off the eBay, created the first connectivity, understood what it looks like, to where we have came all the way here. Currently trusted by more than 10,000 sites, trusted by large amount of AI initiatives and others that is going on in the market, and that was not overnight. It took us 10 years of continuously building the product. The first year itself, it was very simple solution that we want to build, which is breaking down the silos. Manufacturing has silo, it still exists. It existed since 1980s. Even before the data was introduced in manufacturing side, the silo already started getting created. Vendor-defined silo, regional silos, purpose-built silos, it existed. 2015, a simple goal. We want to break these silos so we can make data available to the apps that can use it. I'm going to use the word apps again and again and again throughout my presentation, because we built the company not to become one of the automation vendor. We built the company to fulfill the journey for data and make the apps, enable the apps that can utilize this data better. So at day zero, get the data from the plant floor, make it available to the app that can use that data. That was the whole focus for us at day zero. Then those applications, I'm talking 2017, 1.5, 2 years of working with customers. At that point, we had like 5-10 customers that we were working with. The idea became these apps that were in the cloud. They are like, no, we don't want all the raw data that you are bringing from the plant floor. We don't even understand that data. And it's too expensive. If you remember, the first generation of MQTT brokers got introduced in the cloud. If you remember, the first generation of ingress to the cloud got introduced. Too expensive, too cumbersome to deal with, highly insecure for the manufacturing side. So they asked us that our apps are running in the cloud. Before you send us the raw data, analyze that data and give it to us. So Litmus's responsibility became, let's go ahead and introduce the intelligence layer right in the edge layer, edge environment itself. So in 2017, we evolved to become that. Then comes 2019. We are talking the first generation of machine learning getting introduced in the market. First generation of smarter apps which understood data, metadata, and it understood the context as well. So all of our customers, at this point, few hundred customers, large customers that we were working with, the idea became, rather than giving us raw data and alarms, events, and analysis out of it, give us the whole thing. Raw data, analyze data, machine learning driven data, structure it in a way, model it in a way that we can readily use. So our job as Litmus became, or it grew from raw data to analyze data to have digital twins supported as a part of it. And as we grew further, in 2021, the idea became the apps which were running in the cloud. Once again, manufacturers, they still wanted to bring it back to the air-gapped environment. Docker got introduced, Docker got in production, and our idea was, let's bring those apps where we were sending data to, bring it back home, bring it back to the manufacturing site so we can have a low latency, air-gapped, and secure, offline capable applications we can build. So Litmus evolved from connectivity to analytics layer to all the contextualization to runtime for the apps itself. And then there comes 2023. It became the first year after ChatGPT got introduced. And every single one of us at Litmus, we had a task. How do we bring this fantastic innovation from the AI native world back to the plant floor? That's all what we do. Anything that comes in the broader app and AI world, we want to bring it back. So as a hyper-converged vendor, we had a footprint on the plant floor. How do we bring all of this new AI and AI prompt engineered applications back to edge? That became our responsibility. And we introduced support with NVIDIA. We introduced support for a lot of Llama, SLM, LLM, machine learning, TensorFlow. A lot of these components became part of Litmus platform itself. And then last year, right on this stage, it was the first time ever our idea became, okay, we have all the data. We have more drivers than anybody can use. We have all the metadata, context, understanding. How can we enable the value on the top of that data in matter of seconds? So we created agentic runtime for AI-driven workflows. We showcased it right here. Right now, millions of those workflows, they are running out there in the world. At this point, again, tens of thousands of installations of Litmus, they are out there. Our job became to enable these AI apps. That brings us to 2026, and right on this stage, what you're going to see is power of one. Over the next 4 days, so you're going to see countless AI-driven applications. Yesterday, I was walking the exhibition floor, and I saw at least 40 different applications which were created by AI. It was 1 hour to build a full-blown application. 1 day to build, somebody built the MES system. They were showing it to me yesterday. It took them 1 day to build it. Where are we going as a manufacturing industry? It's like there is an incredible momentum in the cloud and AI-generated way, where if we can bring it back to edge, it became our responsibility now. So today, from that data layer, metadata layer, Litmus's job is evolving into the foundation, where all of these AI-created apps will run. Once again, we have deployments in the field where the data is available. So how do we integrate these AI-generated apps and interfaces back to the frontline worker? How do we introduce this runtime? How do we do the orchestration? Everything will be powered by Litmus IQ as a foundational platform which secures and governs everything. So the idea is we are here because it took us a decade of relentless innovation. We did not stop at just PLC to SCADA. We did not stop at PLC to MES. We want to enable every generation of hand-built apps or AI-generated apps running right at the edge. And context became the largest priority with security and scale. So at a high level, this is what I want to reintroduce Litmus to anybody that does not know. It's not one thing that is given is our roadmap, we are constantly evolving every single day in terms of the new features that we are bringing. And with that, how do we define ourselves? What we built, it doesn't fit a single mold out there in the market. Are we X replacement, Y replacement, Z replacement? No, we are not in that mold in the first place. So there is Sam with me going to define how do we buckle it up in the first place.
Thank you, Vatsal. Thank you. So I'm going to speak about building the right industrial data foundation for AI. I am Sam Elsner. I'm the VP of Product Experience at Litmus. I think we've all done a lot of business together, a lot of work together. I think I remember Walker and Kyle Chase and Z-Money and I, we were in a room together with no windows for how long? It felt like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a year. Building one of the biggest SCADA systems in the planet. And I think that SCADA system is still around today. It's still one of the biggest ones on the planet. So needless to say, we've seen when things work. We've seen when things fail. And over the more than 15,000 implementations I've done in my career, I've had to rely on small data utilities, point solutions, to create really big systems. And I can say from experience that small utilities and point solutions work excellently well as point solutions for a single system, a single problem. But scaling that, repeating that success across another environment was always yeoman's work. It was long and hard, and it really amounted to rebuilding a completely new system at a new place. Well, the world's changing a bit. I don't know if you've all noticed. Things are not the same as they were 10 years ago. New macro factors exist. Gosh, the ubiquity of really difficult deep tech like TensorFlow, the generative AI revolution. AI really does make industrials look a lot more attractive for investment in a way that it never has before. So my point is that we've had to use point solutions because we've had to. Whether or not there are other options available, maybe there weren't, maybe they were too expensive, or maybe They were the only company to pick up the phone when you needed somebody. Maybe they were only the only company that would run into that burning building with you. Well, there are more now. And there are many more that will pick up the phone. So those projects that we did were successful. Those projects really did add value. Oh, sorry, guys. The projects really were successful. They did add value. The problem was that they were extremely difficult to scale and move forward. The business dynamics that were present at the time prevented them from reaching the hopes and dreams that we put in them. We succeeded in one location and had struggled to move that to more, and therefore, in a lot of ways, the last 10 years had not so much failures, but the dream of enterprise digital transformation wasn't realized. So many markets and many businesses, many companies are at an inflection point. That one Industry 4.0 grassroots project at my one facility was remarkable. It was groundbreaking. It paved new roads and showed people up and down the organization new opportunities to add value and engage. But grassroots, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't just happen. It's survival. It's the best of your limited options. You have little support outside of your production teams. The businesses struggle to understand. They don't invest. Vendors price below purchase card thresholds just to sneak tech into facilities to avoid management scrutiny. How are we going to transform a business when these are the pressures that we face? So the problem exists in part because for businesses to invest in production systems, economies of scale have to be reached that look a lot more like 10 of those sites, 10 of those facilities, than one. How are you going to provide a reasonable ROI to leadership if you're burning your entire projected savings on refactors and rework for the next site? How long did it take you? What'll happen on the next 8 sites? I know what'll happen. You all know what'll happen. So this leaves business leaders to restrict investment. They offer you a high five and say, do the best you can, but sorry, we don't have budget to invest in that this year, maybe next year. They often assess too much risk with homegrown solutions that are built on point solutions. And now you're back scrapping for tools, building each plant one by one, even if you're that lucky. And in the meantime, business has gotten really excited and bought a ton of Anthropic credits, thrown them at everybody, and say, innovate, transform. And what do you get? High cost, administrative burden, failed ROI. Sometimes with generative AI, no ROI. The data plane doesn't exist. The context doesn't exist yet. The hard work hasn't been done. So we've learned a lot over time. We're doing hard work. We know that we need to collect. We know that we need to extract and transform. Often, we must also store. We must egress, and we must do all of that securely in a consistent, governed, and guided way. So meet Litmus. We are an enterprise-class industrial data foundation. We create industrial data systems for production automation, for AI, and for everything in between. We collect and we engage automation devices with hundreds of connectors at speeds that, frankly, I could only dream of in my past with other tools. We normalize and we extract and we transform and we model. We store within Litmus, outside of Litmus. We egress, MQTT, Kafka, HTTP, UA, NATS, Databricks, Azure, Snowflake, Google, on and on and on. And with your help, with your expertise of your businesses and your systems, we can become the contextualized data plane for so much more, for modernized production management, for analytics, for AI, for enterprise digital transformation. Litmus is the only industrial data platform that was built to scale from the very first launch. So clouds scale, right? It's why we love them. So our internal architecture within Litmus Edge is that part of the cloud that makes it so good. We just deliver it in a box, made for normal engineer consumption, downloadable in a runtime image from our website. can run it on a bare metal Raspberry Pi. You can run it on a VM on Windows, on Linux. You could run it in Kubernetes. You could run it in your cloud. You could run it in our cloud. You could run it in their cloud. And at the same time that we were building Litmus Edge, we were building Litmus Edge Manager, a dedicated standalone utility that allows anybody to manage any number of Litmus Edge instances granularly, from local, remote, hyper remote. Run it in your data center, run it in your shop floor, run it in your cloud, run it in their cloud. It's what allows us to scale from 1 site to 100 with limited rework. They go together. Scale is in our DNA. As I said, it's in our architecture. It is who we are. It is our product. It's our product features. It's a key value proposition that we know moves the needle for enterprises looking to transform. 100 sites from pilot to scale without significant re-architecting. That is the promise of bringing future technology, or cloud, IT, big data technology into manufacturing. These problems have been solved. Twitter, Facebook, Google, the folks who invented Go, the folks who invented Kubernetes. They may not know the detailed nuances of our space, but they made some good tech, and we should try everything we can to use it. So, let me pass it to my esteemed colleagues, Dave and Hussein, who will take you through our platform and show you why I am so excited to build with Litmus. This is unscripted, this is live, nothing is recorded, and we're going to prove it. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Hi, I'm Dave McMorrin, Field CTO with Litmus. Go ahead.
So I'm going to stand here. I want to ask questions as you go.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So because I know you guys are doing it live, I just want to summarize what Sam said, which is very important because scale is a very, very important question that we get all the time. Litmus is approaching scale in a way that other organizations are not, which is from the first implementation. So they're thinking about the fact that you will have to scale from the proof of concept, and they're baking it into the platform. And so that is a key differentiator between Litmus Edge and all other players in the space, okay? All right, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you very much, Walker. So I was going to joke about my CEO saying, hey, we want 10 minutes before you do your demo, which is going to be tight to begin with. And I always tell my team, hey, when the guy that signs your check says they want 10 minutes, you give them 10 minutes. Now I got to deal with this guy who also wants some time as I'm watching the clock drop down. So here we are to prove it. Again, Dave McMorrin, Field CTO here at Litmus. I've been here with 6 years. I've been in the automation space for 30 years, so I've seen all the stuff that you guys have seen, touched all the stuff that you guys have seen. But I wanted to ask you a question. Who here has any AI initiative in their companies? Show of hands. So, few people out there, right? Yeah, good. Maybe half the crowd or so. Okay, how many have seen any ROI from that? Yeah, that's kind of what, okay, good. I'm glad to see that, right? We're starting to do some stuff. One of the things that we've realized with AI is not the AI failing for your enterprise, it's the architecture that's failing. AI doesn't scale, it doesn't need to scale, it's the architecture that needs to scale. So that's what we're here today to talk about, is actually showing you how we can take these models that AI needs, that contextualize data, get that into the system that you want to use, whether it's going to Databricks or Google Cloud or whatever. We're not the AI company. We're the guys that are taking that data, getting it contextualized, and getting it to where that AI lives and solving those use cases. Okay, so we're actually going to get into this. And joining me today is Hossein Gulamarad, one of my team members here, and he's going to be driving and presenting it as well. So let's actually get into this and start talking about what we're going to do today. Okay, so the ProveIt challenge, we were looking at this and we saw the 3 enterprises, we saw B had multiple sites, and we're always talking about scale. So we said, as usual, like, we're not gonna do one plant, we're gonna do all of them, right? So what are we gonna do? We're gonna go create a data foundation in all these plants to be used for AI and be scalable and show you how we do that, okay? So what we're gonna do, next slide, is we're actually gonna go put Litmus Edge in every plant, every site, okay? So we're gonna go to A, we're gonna put one in there, C as well, we're gonna do some AI in C as well that's built into the platform. And then B, we're gonna go connect to all 3 sites that are there, and we're gonna create a new site in B to replicate it to show you how we can actually create that same model and show that at scale as well. So we can go from PLC all the way to cloud in that AI stack. Great, so we can move it. So one of the things I wanna talk about is OT data versus IT data, right? If I look at a UNS, right, the context is in the topic. right? And the payload is very simple. It's basically technically a string because it's JSON, but it's a value, right? Which is great for SCADA systems and that layer 2, layer 3. It's great for historians. That's what we've been doing it. That's the legacy way to look at it, the old way. It's still very valid, so don't get me wrong on that. It's still the way that you want to do it. Problem is, AI doesn't look at that data that way. AI needs that data in a context. So what we're going to do is we're going to transform that UNS data into a payload that looks like this. We're going to take all that context out of the topic, add that into the payload, put in the raw data, put in analyzed data, put in other data from other systems, and merge that all together to give you something that AI can actually use. Okay? So next slide. So basically, let's start with Enterprise A. All right, so the story on that is going to be we're going to put in a data model. We're going to put in the SESMI model, right? We're going to meet all the requirements of ProveIt. We're going to publish it back to the local UNS, right? We're going to do that as one-off just to kind of show you, give you a feel for how that works. And then we're going to go into scaling that in the future plans. So the architecture is basically putting a Litmus edge into probably your layer 3 in your plant, right? In your DMZ area, connected to the ProveIt UNS, okay? We're also going to go, could you back up? We're going to go to Litmus Unify as well. So we have a third product. So we have Litmus Edge Manager, Litmus Unify. Litmus Unify is basically an MQTT broker with a governance layer on top of it. So we're not showing that, we're showing that really only for demo purposes to look at the data and try to introduce you to that product as well. Great. So let's actually jump into the Litmus Edge. So here we have a Litmus Edge. Notice it's browser-based, right? No development tool. You just need to log in with an HTML5 browser. We're connecting using our device hub. We're connecting to MQTT. So what we're going to do now is going to go connect and browse all the tags in the UNS and bring those all in. So here you can see we browsed all the tags. We're going to add those to the system and add the tags. So once you do that, you'll see all the tags here. By the way, I'm going to be flying through this because everybody ate into my time. So stop by our booth.
And Dave, real quick, you can add. We have 15 minutes for questions.
Okay.
So go over if you need to.
All right.
Work them.
Just trying to be mindful.
That 22 minutes is not a hard.
Great.
It's really 37.
All right, great. So basically, what we've done is we brought in all the tags, and we've made the tag name the topic structure, right? So we brought it in so we can actually leverage that topic structure and that context in the data to then further use. So another thing we did is we actually added some tags and added some metadata to those, because one of the things that we can do is we can add metadata to the devices, and we can add metadata to the tags themselves. So you're already starting to add context to the data right from the get-go. No code, you're just adding key value pairs to the data, and you can actually start adding context to the data. So things like unit of measure or location and that kind of data.
So do you quickly, just for those who don't use Litmus, Edge is running where? So it's going to be running on a server in the plant?
It's a server in the plant. It's all on-prem. It's in layer 3 typically, but and you can actually run layer 2, right? Replacing that connectivity layer, and then publishing that securely through to layer 3. So you can
everything we're doing right now is through Edge interface.
Everything's Edge interface. We're going to get into Litmus Edge Manager next, and then we're going to also show Litmus Unify, which is that MQTT broker.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks, Walker. So basically, here's the metadata. So the point is, we're adding metadata to this data to enrich it right from the tag level. Okay. So once we have the data, we can actually run analytics on the data. So this is where, when we run analytics, when we talk about it, we're not running the big historical analytics. This is where we're basically doing things like moving average, min, max, anomaly detection, using SPC type of calculations on the data, but basically transforming it at the edge instead of sending a bunch of raw data to the cloud, which can get expensive, and transforming it there. We're going to pre-process that data to make it a little less expensive, make it a little more lower latency, and those kinds of things. Okay? Then we can go into our digital twin models. Right? This is where we can actually start taking static data that you can change. You can actually add raw data. You can add analyzed data. You can bring data in from multiple sources. We only have the one source right now, but we can actually add multiple sources and bring all that data together. Right? So when you're talking about multiple sources, you can be pulling in maybe your work order information, shift information, operator information, and adding that to the data model to let AI start leveraging that data. Okay? So the first part is actually building the model. You'll see here we have a line model, an equipment model, and a SESMI model. So the first thing we're going to do is actually set the static data. So the static data is things that are not going to change very often, allow you to change maybe location or type of machine, those kinds of things. We're actually putting in our Litmus Unify metadata to allow for governance there. So next thing we're going to do is we actually can transform the data. So this is where we actually are using JSONata, in fact, to transform the data. We're going to take that topic, break it up into key value pairs, and add that to the payload when we're done. Okay, so we're transforming that tag data with this transformation. A new feature we've added recently is the parameters. This allows us to actually use parameters. If you guys are familiar with UDTs, same idea. It's actually leveraging that parameter, so when you're deploying that instance, you can actually do that by just filling out a couple of parameters, and all the topics get mapped to your data model. Okay, and then here's our dynamic attributes. That's where you'll actually see the parameters in use, so we're building that into your topic. So once again, once you fill out the parameters, it's going to deploy those and map all those topics really quickly, which then allows us to deploy those models at scale as well. Okay, so now we've built the schema. This is where we actually start organizing this. This is a relatively flat model, but you can make whatever model. You can have sub-objects in there. You can make very complex systems. You can basically make them composable, so you can add different models or different equipment to a same model if you want. So very flexible from that standpoint. Okay, now we have our model. Now let's go create instances. So instances, what we're going to do here is basically create an instance. We're going to change the static metadata that we want. We can then go map our dynamic data. That should be done through the parameter settings. Just map all that data to it. And then we're going to have the data access. So it's just a view to and what that data model looks like. So we can subscribe to that and actually look at that data and see what's happening. Okay, so we've basically gone from the connecting to the UNS, brought all that data together and transformed it into a data model. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take that data model and we're going to publish it up to where it needs to go. In this case, we're going to talk about Litmus Unify. That's our MQTT broker. We'll show that in a second. But the first thing we'll do is we'll publish it back to the ProveIt UNS as required. And so we're connected. We're sending that data. So that data model that we just created is being sent. And we're also sending it to Litmus Unify here through these integrations. These all have store and forward baked in, so you don't have to worry about losing data and all set up. So we're going to show MQTT Explorer here. You can see that we're actually sending that data to the ProveIt UNS. And now let's go look at Litmus Unify, which is our MQTT broker.
And Unify is running where?
Yeah.
In this
Unify in this environment is running in Azure currently. Auth Unify. Litmus Unify is a Kubernetes-based MQTT broker, so it's got highly available and high scalability, or it's auto-scale already baked in. You can run it on-prem, you can run it in the cloud, you can run it in your data center, wherever you want to, okay? So it's acting as a version 5.0 MQTT broker, so just like you're using with other MQTT brokers, publish and subscribe to it. But one thing we did was we made this for manufacturing. So out of the box, it's SSL, it's all set up, it's all configured through a UI, so no having to deal with any config files or anything like that. But we also added, what's really important is that we added a governance layer to it. Okay, what do I mean by a governance layer? Is you actually specify what your UNS topic structure looks like, and then you create rules around that. So when the data goes up and you don't have a rule on it, we will flag that data for you. So you'll notice here that we've got kind of an orange-yellow color on our Enterprise A. That's the data we just talked about, the data model we're sending up. It's in orange, so Hussein's going to go and basically accept that data, but you can reject it, you can flag it, and basically you'll now see that all that data is turned green, and you can actually see an example of the data here.
So what we're seeing right here is if an ethereal topic was published in, something that it's a one-shot.
Yeah.
You
would flag it.
You just flag it.
It would see it orange, and then you can go and accept it. You can reject it. You can ignore it. Whatever you want to do.
So what you're doing is you're turning these into entities in Unify and ignoring the ones that are just ethereal.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So basically, I wanted to show this, and there's some other tools in here that are kind of neat, but again, lack of time. So stop by our booth downstairs. Happy to go into more detail on any of this stuff. Another thing that we added to Litmus Unify is we said, hey, knowledge graphs are getting more popular to look at the data. So what we did is we added a feature where we're syncing the topic structure to a graph database, right? And then you can leverage that. We happen to be using Neo4j here, but you can use any graph database you choose. But the idea is to start showing that knowledge graph of that data. And then with knowledge graphs, you can actually show tree views. So if you're traditional, like that ISA 95 tree architecture, you can do that, or you can look at the knowledge graph, however you want to look at it.
And this is only what we've accepted. So we would not see because it needs to be an entity in order for you to graph it. Okay, got it. Okay.
So just a new little feature that we added to it. We're going to see how how people enjoy that. So that was Enterprise A, and now we're going to jump to C. So C, we're going to do the same thing, right? We're going to connect all the data sources in C. Well, let's look at the architecture first. So architecture is going to be just like an A, but we've added a little bit there. We're going to use some of the AI that's built into the Litmus Edge platform. And when I say AI, this is not us putting an AI engine or an LLM in there. What the AI engine is just a way to connect to whatever model you want, send a prompt, send context to the data, get a response back, right? So we'll show how we do that too. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to first do the AI use case because it takes about 15 seconds for it to load instead of waiting around. So what we're going to do here is on Enterprise C, it was a paper-based system, right? So we did this use case a year ago. We said, hey, why don't we just take a picture of that clipboard data that some operator filled out, right? We're going to ingest that and we're going to convert it to a JSON payload, right? Simple use case. So what we're showing here is just a Grafana interface that we're going to upload the file. Hosseин's uploaded it, submitted it, and then we're actually going to convert it to a JSON, okay? So simple use case. Now let's actually look at how we did that. So we'll jump into Litmus Edge. This is Enterprise C. Just again to kind of show you what we've done. We've connected all the 3 data sources. We've gone to the data models. We've done analytics. We've done the data models. I don't want to go do that again just because you've seen it all, but just to show you that we can connect to everything out there, publish it back to ProveIt, et cetera, okay? But let's jump into the analytics and actually look at the AI and how we implemented that, because it's actually really simple, right? So if we look at the analytics on here, okay, if we go to the right page, thank you, is we have a node in the analytics called AI Vision, right? We're pointing it to ChatGPT, but you can point it to Claude, you can point it to wherever you want, okay? So what is the context of the data? The context of the data is that file, that image we uploaded. We're taking that file, and that's the context to your AI prompt. Just like you would hit the little plus sign in your ChatGPT to add a file or an image, same idea, okay? We're then running that prompt, running through that AI prompt, and let's actually look at the prompt itself. So just to look at what's inside that node is just basically point it at the model and write the prompt just like you would in any other ChatGPT. So what are we doing here? We're really bringing this whole AI interface to the end user, to the operator, to somebody that doesn't have to be an AI expert. That's really the intention for this, is to leverage AI using that context and not have to write a bunch of custom code to make that happen. Okay? So the output basically is that JSON payload. We're going to take that JSON. Now I can parse it. I can put it into a database. I can send it up to the cloud, whatever I need to do with the data. The idea is this simple use case to leverage AI that's happening at the edge. All right? So now that we're done with C, we're going to jump into Enterprise B, the multi-site organization. So here what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we can actually take that same data model we put in A and C. We're going to take that model, we're going to put them in Enterprise B Site 1. So let's just show that we've done that and we've connected all the data sources in that. Oh, first let's look at the architecture. I keep forgetting that part. So Litmus Edge in every site on the plant. These are the 3 sites that we're given at ProveIt. We are now connected to the ProveIt UNS in there. We are extracting that data just like we did before, right? But here, what the difference is going to be is we're going to deploy all the SESMI models in bulk. It's going to take just a minute to do that, okay? So, one of the things I made not merely a mistake, but didn't realize last year is I asked about scale, right? It's like, who's having a scale problem? Well, what I realized is most people, when they hear scale, what they're thinking is amount of data. Like, how much data can you actually send? I don't have a problem with that. That's usually not the issue. When we talk about scale, what we're really talking about is how do I monitor my entire system, right? How do I make sure my resources are good, right? CPU, RAM. How do I make sure my connectivity is happening, right? Am I connected to all my PLCs? Am I connected to cloud and databases, right? How do I create alerts if something does disconnect and create an alert around that? So that's part of it, is the monitoring of your entire data enterprise, your data pipeline. Okay. The second part is management, right? I have 50 sites. How am I going to go update all of those, over the air, right? So we have a part where we can actually do updates over the air. You can schedule which ones you want to update. You can put it into your maintenance cycle, your downtime cycles, et cetera. Okay. The other thing we talk about is replication at scale. right? How do I take that pipeline that Sam was talking about? How do I take that pipeline and replicate it over and over and over on those sites? How do I do that at mass, right? Because when the data you're with, the big difference I think with IoT data versus what we've been doing in the past is, right, SCADAs were built to kind of just run a system and be there and really didn't change very often, right? IoT has changed all that. The data you're using should be changing all the time. You should be learning from it, building new applications. So the idea is that you need to be able to leverage those updates and do that very quickly for every site, okay? So let's actually get into it. So we're gonna go into Enterprise B, Site 1, again, connected all the data sources. We browsed all the tags. We're gonna go put the data models in there. So we've created the same data models, and we've created the instances around the data models, right? So we did all that in Site 1 just to show it was done. Okay, now let's jump into Site 2, right, where we don't have the SESMI models deployed. And I'm gonna hand it over to Hossein to go show you Litmus Edge Manager and how we're gonna deploy all these models with just a few clicks. Hossein?
Thank you, Dave. So in order to make sure that I can do this at scale and prove it out, as a consultant, I wanted to show how this actually would work out. What I have is an empty, essentially all my instances for the SESMI model are gonna be empty, as you can see on the screen. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through my Litmus Edge Manager.
And what we're showing now is the difference between managing everything in an instance of Litmus Edge and move up.
So Litmus Edge Manager would be running in the cloud, for instance, in your data center. It's in your tenancy, right? So we don't hold it, but this is where you can actually start monitoring and managing all that, your entire enterprise. Go ahead, Hossein.
And if you remember, Walker, last year we actually did all the sites basically all in one click, right? So now this year we're just gonna take one specific granular piece and just do that as well. So we're showing both basically over the years, right? So what we got here, I'm picking out the model that I have, I'm picking out the site that I want to deploy to, and then I've prepared a simple CSV file that I'll be able to upload. The CSV file will actually populate all the parameters, and then as a whole, I'll be able to deploy 19 instances very simply here, basically. So I'm gonna hit deploy. This will take probably 30 seconds to a minute. So I'll pass it back to Dave and let him speak to this.
Great, so we'll end up back at Site 2 and we'll show that the SESMI models were deployed here in a second. But just to kind of cover the Litmus Edge Manager. So the first window you log into, you get a company layer. This is just an organizational layer to start organizing your Litmus Edge connections. So we start with ProveIt, we'll drill into that, all right, and we get to our next level, which is projects. So now we've created Enterprise A, B, and C, and the filling company that we put in there will be the fourth site that we're building as well, so we just separated that out. But you can organize it however you want. Okay, once you log into that project, you can see a dashboard. Now it's giving me a view on the resources, the amount of data going through, connectivity, those kinds of things. We can actually see what's going on there. Then we can actually jump down to edge devices. We can see what's connected. You can actually start going into an edge device, see the data that's connected, see if there's an error, right? We actually see something's going on with the OPC UI client, so we can actually know where to go look for problems, right? You can create an alert around that. I can go into the device, I can reboot it, I can update it, I can do a backup. There's all the stuff you can do to monitor and manage that from a single pane of glass. I can also remote in from a device and click on that little button. It'll take me right to that same interface we've been showing at the edge. So you really have a central location to do all your configurations and everything, right? And templates, that's where we're actually creating these templates around maybe a device connection, right? You've got a filling machine and you want to have a name tagging convention on it. You can actually take that template and deploy that template out. So you start adding that governance layer we've talked about, right? And you can do that at scale. I can take that and deploy it as many times as I want. Applications, because we have a Docker engine running that Vatsal had mentioned, we can actually take applications, run those at the edge, right? So you can take Ignition Edge panel or a web app that you built. You can actually start deploying that, or ML containers, nowadays AI even at the edge. But the idea is that you can orchestrate those applications from here, okay? Updates, you can do software updates here. We don't need to show that, but basically you can update the software here and do everything. So that's just kind of high-level overview of Litmus Edge Manager. Let's go into Enterprise B2, right? You can see there's no SESMI models here. We'll refresh the screen, and all the SESMI models that Hossein just did just got deployed. So we basically deployed 19 models in just a matter of 30 seconds or so. Yeah, we had to fill out the Excel spreadsheet, but that's something that's really pretty easy to do where AI can actually leverage.
And real quickly on the SESME model piece, for those of you who are not familiar with the profiles, a profile is basically a definition of an asset. So if I publish a profile or consume a profile, if I'm the client, I know exactly how to parse that asset, so I can format the data in the way that basically I can create a CNC profile or a CNC with Fanuc controller profile. That's what the SESME profile is that these guys are using.
Yeah, so we're just basically using the SM profiles that exist already. It's a growing trend in the industry, so we're going to jump onto that. Actually, on our roadmap is to tie right into the SESME models, so that'll be our repo. So you can actually, the models that are in the SESME repo, we can actually pull in and automatically do that. So we see that coming. Always do, come on. All right. We're not done yet. We're not done. Okay, now we're going to create Site 4. Site 4, we're going to actually leverage Dell Native Edge there. Dell Native Edge, stop by our booth and talk to those guys. It's a way to set up your infrastructure. Buy a Dell PC that's Native Edge compliant, plug it in. It basically will download Litmus Edge for you. There's a blueprint you can create and basically customize what that infrastructure looks like. All right, so we're going to use that, and then, so here's where we're going to build that entire pipeline, but we're going to start at the PLC level. Okay, so first of all, we're in a device hub. We've shown this before, but MQT connections. Here, we're actually going to show the PLC connectivity. So here's a list of our drivers, hundreds of drivers built in. You get all of them when you get the Litmus Edge platform. Okay, and this includes not just PLCs, but also torque tools or historians or CNC machines. Like pretty much everything you see on the shop floor, we've tried to cover all of those. And we can build drivers really quickly if you don't see it there, as Walker had talked about. So we've added these devices. You'll see that with Siemens, Modbus TCP, and OPC-UA. We've connected all of those. Now we're going to go take that data. We'll ingest all the data. We're going to go to analytics, and we want to match all the other Site B components to make that ProveIt UNS. So we're going to go calculate OEE, PA, and Q. All the things that we saw in Site B, we'll use analytics to basically do that calculation. We can bring the data in. We can actually ingest, convert data to Parquet files. So if you're using something like Snowflake or Databricks, you can do that as well. But the idea is that we have a lot of different ways to get data, from one format and changing that, transforming that data, and get it to other systems. Okay. So moving on here, we've got the integrations here. So we built the data models, right? So we've got the data models, we've included all those, so there's a lot more data models because we have more stuff because we're connecting at the PLC level, right? We've included the SESME models here, so all those instances exist, and then we're going to integrate those again up into Litmus Unify, so now we have we basically have gone in Site B4, or Enterprise B Site 4, we have gone from PLC, same data model, done all the transformations and gotten that cloud to get that scalable AI.
So real quick, when the average manufacturer, so what they've done is basically added a fourth plant for Enterprise B. So
Right.
there are 3 plants, multi-site. They've added a fourth plant. You do applications. Sam does applications. In general, when a manufacturer is using Litmus Edge Manager and they are using Litmus Edge to scale new plants, how much rework, how much congruency do they have from plant 3 to plant 4? Is it 90% and they're doing 10% massaging?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. Some plants have been really organized, like they've all said, okay, we're all Rockwell, we're all this. But more often is every plant's done their own silo and built their own kind of structures. So one of the first things we have to do is we have workshops around that. Thanks for the lead-in. We have workshops that go in through infrastructure. Where is this all going to live, right? How's it going to run, right? The second workshop is like, okay, what are we doing with the data, right? Because what are we doing with the data leads into where is that data located, right? So we do device and tag configuration. Where is this data? Where is it located? And that's usually where it kind of starts breaking, is right around that. So we end up spending time on working with the subject matter experts, the control engineers that are saying, okay, I know where this data is, I know where all that is. We basically are filling out forms to do that. We use those forms are basically, because everything we're doing in Litmus Edge and Litmus Edge Manager is all API driven and GraphQL driven. So we actually are automatically generating that kind of stuff. So that's something we offer.
So I generally tell clients that you should expect 40% effort in the second site from the first site, 20% effort from site 3 from site 2. You should be having it up until you get to about 10%.
It really is an accelerator for sure. That's what we've seen. It's the first plant, it could be 3 to 6 months, sometimes quicker, sometimes longer, right? But in that range. second plant in that 2 to 3 months, and then after that, it's like once a week. We're upscaling one of our bigger customers. We were doing a new plant in 15 minutes. Okay, so
that's awesome.
Just to kind of give you an idea. Here we're showing how we can actually take that data model. We can go right to Databricks, right? We don't need to go to Litmus Unify. We don't need to go to anything else. We can go right to Databricks here. We can go right to Google through PubSub. We can go right to things like Snowflake or Azure. We're basically cloud agnostic from that standpoint, but we've got some partnerships here that we're working with, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. Okay, let's move on because we're running out of time here. Okay.
Let's do 7 more minutes, and then we'll put the questions up.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Great. So the other thing is on Enterprise B Site 4, we decided to add our MCP server. So now we're going to get into the AI stuff. Okay, so here's our architecture for that. We've leveraged Dell Native Edge. We've installed the MCP server. It's available to you. The MCP server is running as a container within Litmus Edge, so I can actually deploy that through Litmus Edge Manager like we talked about. I can deploy it at scale. New MCP server, deploy at scale, okay? So we take the MCP server. Let's look at the architecture on that. So our MCP server, what we're doing is we're tying that to our API calls, right? So if we're tying that to our API calls, that means I can do all the configuration on it. You're going to see a lot about configuration this week, right? Everybody's talking about AI, right? But we wanted to look at it as like, configuration, how often am I adding a new production line? I'm not doing it that often. How often am I making a complete new data pipeline? I'm not doing it that often. So we wanted to look at it as like, how can I use AI every day to help my job, right? And so we're going to get into some troubleshooting on what we can use with the MCP server, okay? And by the way, configuration, do it for sure. I'm just saying, what else can you do with the data with AI? Okay. The other thing is, we're actually going to do some development with AI, and we're going to talk about how we're going to simulate systems to actually give you a real world and actually start building and developing what looks like a real world system and leveraging AI for that. And then the final thing is, you can actually leverage the data. I doubt we'll have time for that, but you're going to see that a lot of places. That's not really our focus, right? That is the focus for guys like Databricks and Google to actually leverage AI in the Databricks, but we can actually show you in the booth if you want to stop by. All right, let's jump into it then. Okay, so we built a solution, my team did, okay? This is not a solution that's available to you, unfortunately, right? Because there's no support for it, and it was built by a bunch of sales guys, so it's not going to be available to you, okay? So basically, we built an interface to the MCP server. You can use whatever you want. You can use Cursor or whatever. We just said, hey, we're sales, so we're going to start, leveraging our logo and branding and that kind of stuff. So anyway, what Hossein going to do is actually ask the MCP server, how do I add a Modbus TCP driver? So he's put that in there, and the response back is basically, okay, you just need to name it. You need an IP address and a port. Okay, we are purposely going to change the port. Everybody knows Modbus TCP is 502. We're going to change it because now we're going to go into troubleshooting. Okay, so this is something that you're doing every day. If you've got a big plant, we were talking to a company, large automotive manufacturer that has thousands of PLCs, and something they do every day is, having to troubleshoot because something's offline and we don't know why. So we're going to actually use it for troubleshooting. Okay, so basically he has now created a PLC on that with the wrong port. We'll actually jump into Litmus Edge and actually see that it was actually configured, right? So we'll refresh the screen. There should be one that's shown disconnected. There it is. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the MCP server, and we're going to say, hey, let's help diagnose this. So the first thing we're going to do is, hey, download a PCAP file for us, and then go analyze it, okay? So we're going to do 2 steps here. So built into the Litmus Edge platform is a way to look at the network and generate a PCAP file like you do with Wireshark. Okay? So it's actually going to go request that. It takes about a minute, so I now have to vamp and talk about whatever while that's happening, so excuse me for that. But basically what it's going to do is download, scan that for about a minute. It's going to grab that file. The PCAP file, if you guys have looked at it, is actually its own format. So we're going to have to convert that to a text file, and the AI will do that for you. But basically then it'll go analyze it. Now, one thing I'll say is once we do the next step on the PCAP and look at it, this hasn't been finely tuned, because again, built by sales guys, is going to be, sometimes we get it as like, hey, the port is wrong, go change it, and others are more of like, hey, check these 3 things before you do it, and all those things are in the system. So as we fine tune this a little bit better, it'll get better as well. but we just kind of want to show, this is more of like a, what can you do with AI to help your job, okay? So we've got the PCAP file. We're going to go actually analyze it. This is the clinching moment right now. It's like what it comes back with.
This is also a good illustration of don't say diagnose a device problem that we have. You start the diagnosis and use the agent to help you work through it. I have a device problem with this device. So you're fine tuning and instead of asking the agent to reason through, okay, they have a device problem. I have to first find out which device it is. You should probably already know by the time you ask the question. So it is a good example of how you're working with the agent rather than giving it just the objective.
Right, because one of the things you can do is prompt is like, hey, what's disconnected? And it'll find that, right away. And it's like, okay, there's that. And then I'll go and say and look at that PCAP file. And it's like, okay, let's go analyze that PCAP file. And like I said, sometimes it's gone and said, hey, 502, you got 5502, it should be 502, change it, versus a, here are the 3 things that you can do to go check.
And you could integrate with Open Router, right? We're not required to connect to an API like a Claude API or an OpenAI API.
You can use whatever you want on that standpoint. Again, this is not available to you. Like, don't get me fired, guys. Okay, don't ask for it. Right?
But no, you ask for it. They're just not going to give it to you. That way they'll build it. You keep asking for it.
Right. So basically, we come back and we've got some correlations here. Basically, I don't want to go into a lot of it because we're running out of time. We've got to get to Q&A and pricing. But the idea is that we have done this, and I want to show this other feature of Litmus Unify. So one of the other things we were doing instead of troubleshooting, configuring troubleshooting, is development. So what we did is we added to this is a way to develop simulation events in the system that looks like a real factory. So you can start leveraging AI to say, hey, I've got a glass plant here, okay? It's a filling plant. And describe what that plant looks like, and then I can actually start creating scenarios around that. It's like, what are my problems on it? So I can go in and actually create a scenario using AI, just say, hey, run good for this long, then have a filter get clogged, have a belt get go down, something like that, where you can actually start doing that. That is generating the data and streaming it live to the Litmus Edge platform. You can then use a PLC simulator, feed the data into that, right, and build that entire pipeline all the way up.
This is new.
Yeah, I know.
This is new.
So, well, you give a bunch of engineers some time, and some tasks, and they come up with all sorts of stuff. So I'm just looking at this as like, boy, this has really helped me. We're going to be using this for demos. We can start building specific demos for these customers. It's going to go, and AI is going to go look at like, what's happening? They had a security breach. Let's talk about security. We're going to be leveraging this from a sales standpoint internally all the time and building really bespoke demos that is really just going to speed the whole process up. Okay? The other thing I was going to mention, we're not going to do this today, stop by our booth, but because we have an inbuilt time series database in the platform for 30 days, we're going to store the data. So this data is actually getting stored in TS data. The MCP server has access to that, so we can go into Litmus Insight and then start asking it. It's like, analyze my OEE, analyze my other data. But again, that's not really our focus on it. I'm just showing you the capability of doing that in very discrete, short-term.
You should make this available to integrators to help them sell Litmus.
There's a guy over here. There's a guy over here that might.
You hear that, Vatzel? You should make this available for the integrators.
We can make it a real product. Yeah. We'll get actual developers on it. Okay. I also want to give a real quick shout out to our partners, right? So what do? We've talked about this before. We are not the end use case, right? We're not the OEE platform. We're not the predictive maintenance platform. That's not what we do. We are about the data. We are about getting raw data from PLCs in your manufacturing floor, adding context to it, transforming it, creating events, and getting it to where it where it needs to be, and then do that replicated in a scale, right? In that scale way as I defined before. So stop by our booth. We have Google is in our booth. They're talking about their GDC, their global Google Distributed Cloud. So that's running on a box, and you're running Google Cloud at the edge. We also have Databricks in our booth. Stop by and talk to those guys. They're really doing some great stuff with AI and ML on the data. We're also working with Tulip. They're not in our booth, but stop by their booth. We're basically feeding data up into their use case. And there's other companies that we work with as well. I make sure I pointed out some of the ones here. So just trying to define who we are, and that reintroduction that Vatzel gave is like, that's what we are. It's about the data and getting it to the right place in the right format. All right, and here's actually the Tulip description, so you stop by and see that. We're actually feeding the data for Tulip. Okay, pricing. right? So here we are at pricing. This is our list price, this is our starting point. But we're working with customers that have anywhere between 5 sites and 50 sites or 100 sites, 200 sites. So what we end up doing is we have to meet them where they're at, because some of these customers will have basically, lots of sites, so we want a lower price discount on that, or a special service package. They might want to have different feature sets, or not feature sets, but different products where they want Litmus Unify, Litmus Edge. There's the small, medium, large type of plant. So we basically try to meet customers where they're at and adjust the pricing that makes sense.
So the instances we saw there fall in what category?
Those would be in growth, so that the middle tier right there. And then we did 6 plants, so we would have a discount on that.
Okay.
Adam doesn't want to hear that, by the way. But.
Can we put the slide up? And we're going to go over a bit. We're going to go over maybe 5 minutes for questions, because we have a 15-minute break. As long as if you guys want to get up at the top of the hour and walk before inductive automation, but we're going to go over 5 minutes so these guys can answer questions. Outstanding presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Outstanding. I want to start with one. Okay, I'll start with one while you guys get your questions up. Obviously, Litmus as an organization and as a product, Litmus Edge has evolved drastically from where it was 5 years ago, right? How do you guys describe, not the marketing term, how do you describe, Dave, what Litmus is?
It depends on my audience, right? If I'm talking to my mom, it is like we're getting data from here, transforming it, getting it to somewhere else, right? When I'm talking to more of a technical group, if it's IT, I'm talking about this is how you can scale it. You can start using CI/CD pipelines. You can create security around that and governance layers around that, because that's what they want to hear. But it's about basically getting data from that factory floor that is not enriched, that is great for SCADA and historians, but not ready for AI and the big data stuff that you see with Databricks, right? Transferring that data and then doing it at scale. So it always ends at we're doing it at scale.
The number one question, which, by the way, is always the number one question with Litmus, what does an architecture with ignition look like?
Oh, well, we're very flexible from that standpoint, right? We showed the architectures here where there's already a UNS in place, so we're going to connect to that, so we can live in layer 3 and go right to the cloud typically. We can fit into a ISA 95 format if you're a really strict ISA in layer 2, layer 3, 3.5, 4, because inside the Litmus is actually a message broker, a very performant message broker, so we can start cascading stuff all the way up to the cloud. So in more discrete type of plants, we usually see a layer 2 that's doing more protocol conversion, publishing up to layer 3, and then going to cloud. But we can also fit in that chemical plant too that's going all the way up.
And that's the most common. The layer 2 description he just gave you is the most common architecture with ignition. Why not? Let's just go with the old Kepware to Litmus promo.
Shy.
John, Batzel, do we have Adam? Do we have a Kepware to Litmus promotion, conversion promotion?
Yeah, I mean I can answer that question.
Go for it.
we do have a promotion going on right now. You can look at our website. Stop by our booth. I'm not sure what the exact link is, but we also do, more importantly for this group is going to be the conversion. So we can actually take the Kepware files and convert that over, API call into our system, and basically create all.
So you just need the OPF. That's all you need is the OPF file, and perfect. Tell me about your historian. Is the storage on-prem, in the cloud, or hybrid? What's the volume and tag and time dimensions? And I didn't see the last part.
Yeah, so we have a time series database built in. It's based on Influx, just so everybody knows. We used to not limit it, but we limited it to 30 days because we get a lot of calls that people are treating it like a historian. And we're getting calls and service calls like, why isn't it working?
It's not meant to be a historian, but
no, it's 30 days of data. You can control it, but that's the max on the data. You can send, Influx is based off of flat, but you can actually send tag and measurement data to Influx.
Ooh, this is a good question. How does Litmus Edge relate to Manufacturing Connect or Manufacturing Data Engine with Google?
Those Manufacturing Connect and Manufacturing Connect Edge are white labeled products by Google.
They are the same thing.
They're the same thing. The layout's a little bit different. The color scheme's different, but basically the same product.
What kind of pushback have you gotten from cybersecurity when they see AI running PCAPs in an OT environment? Nerd.
Yeah, come on. What is the security concern when you run Wireshark on it? I mean, what's the difference there? So I mean, I haven't seen a lot of that because that was built for us, but what we're trying to do is we've added tools that control.
Are they pushing back?
No, I haven't heard anybody. But basically, the controls guy, we're trying to give tools for controls engineers in that layer 2 to debug stuff. So why do I need to go do a ping somewhere else? Why do I have to do check port? We got those built in.
I think if you're doing it across the IT-OT divide, you're probably going to get pushback. But I think if it's on the OT side, then you're going to be good. Where would Litmus fit in with a hybrid infrastructure with Aviva Pi for DCS data? So,
Sure.
And then siloed machine data like package units.
Yeah, so one of the we try to meet customers where we're at. We have a Pi driver, so if you go into our device hub drivers, there's an Aviva platform, there's an OSI Pi. Because Pi can only run on Windows as unlimited, there is an agent you then install to connect to the Pi to pull the data out. And then once that data is in, it looks like a tag to us, and then we can start adding context and transforming the data model in Pi as well.
So keep these questions right here. So data and metadata ownership, obviously very important question. If you want to move away from Litmus, not sure anyone would want to, but how easily can that be done?
Well, the way I look at it from the standpoint of...
From a data perspective.
Yeah, data we can talk about, but I also want to kind of talk about this from the standpoint of, hey, I don't want to just get one platform and have one entity and deal with it. That's fine. Put us in layer 2, and you can replace that with Kepware or Matricon or anybody else. You can put us in layer 3, right? You can replace that with other data modeling tools or a broker or, et cetera. So if you actually architect it so you can protect yourself, like you were talking about, you can replace those things, right? So it's just really more about architecture. From a data standpoint, yeah, that is more of a process issue, right? That how is a company, how is an enterprise do you actually want to create standards around naming conventions and those kinds of things, and then what is the process for deploying those? We're usually talking of a sandbox environment, production environments. We're actually putting multiple edges in there to do development, to test it out and vet it, and then actually put it into production.
All right, and then this one, this question is for Sam and Adam, even though Adam's not on stage. So there's a question on here that says, how does Litmus differ from others? And since you're the newest member of the team, Adam, you're new to Litmus. Sam's one. Yeah. By the way, if you guys don't know who Sam Elsner is, he's, in my opinion, the greatest applications engineer I've worked with in my career. Litmus happens to have two of the best applications engineer I've ever worked with in connectivity on their team, and that is a fact. Anyone who's worked with Sam will tell you the same thing. Kyle Chase will say the same thing. Travis Cox, we all say that. So you're the guy to answer this question. How does Litmus actually differ from others in the market?
8 times faster than Kepware for driver stuff. Come and talk to me. No, but seriously, there's a lot of differences. The internal architecture yields a massive scalability that I was not able to achieve with Kepware. The business behind it is nimble and still young. It reminds me a lot of when I joined Kepware 16 years ago, where I met Adam Kennedy and we began to take Kepware to market. And I think the position of Litmus right now is we've built an incredible machine. We have incredible technology, but more so we have incredible people. And we're excited, we're ambitious, and we're hungry. So I think there's a lot of differences, technical, business, but when it comes down to it, it's an evolution. Let's say that.
I think high level, it's been pretty wonderful not to have to say no to customers. We say yes a lot at Litmus. And we say yes based on the feedback you're sharing with us. Sometimes I wish we would say no a little more, Bitzal. Can you work on that sometime? Yeah. But it's a pretty wonderful feeling to go to a place where we are here to delight and inspire our customers and say yes a lot.
And there's no tech. The issue is the technology makes that possible. The trade-offs, there are fewer trade-offs because the technology makes saying yes.
Newer code stacks,
right? Newer code stacks,
newer patterns, newer paradigms. We're a truly global company too. We have cultures, religions, people in every pocket of the world, and I like to think that that is a little powerhouse feature of Litmus, being able to see from different perspectives.
Awesome. All right, so I'll answer the upgrades. What do upgrades look like? Disruptions to connectivity. They're compared to what you're used to, there are no disruptions when you do upgrades. There are minor outages, very, very quick upgrade though. Impressive, never forget a plant is planned to run, not to add on line after line. Onboarding is sometimes rare. Does anyone want to address that, Dave?
Well, I mean, basically the concept is, I think with AI, the way AI was built was more for coding. Yeah. Right, so you're doing configuration on it. So when you're bringing a new line on, my point was, it's great that you can use AI to do configuration, right? But it doesn't happen that often when you're doing the config, right? Now, if you start talking about data models, that should be changing all the time. As you start getting the data in, you should be learning from it and making changes to it. So that's why we're showing that actually leveraging that data model. One, yeah, we can do the bringing it online really quickly, but it's more of the, from the data modeling standpoint, that's something you should be iterative about as well. So that's why we showed that.
Is there an architecture where Litmus works with HiByte, or are they mutually exclusive? I have many architectures where both HiByte and Litmus are in the stack. So while there is, again, when it comes to the Venn diagram, while there is overlap in the functionality and the offerings, there are places where HiByte is absolutely appropriate, especially when bolted directly onto Ignition and Snowflake, where you're using Litmus in the layer 2 layer and you're using HiByte at the L3 conversion. So there are many architectures where they fit, but it depends on the use case. There are some times where you're choosing one over the other. What would Litmus look like if there's already an enterprise Ming stack in place?
Can I try to take a step of that? So
Yeah.
I'm speeds and feeds connectivity guy. If you want us to be a UA server with a really, really fast, amazing driver, we can do that for you. So if your Ming stack needs connectivity, great, awesome. Economies of scale need to be figured out. We got to do some cost analysis to figure out if we can make sure that enough value is provided in the platform for it to be worth just a UA server for you. But that's where I would place Litmus to start. On top of that, the Ming stack's wonderful, but how about AI ML workloads? We can run TensorFlow, for example, on a piece of equipment within Litmus. We could take data from the Ming stack and allow you to derive more value than you could otherwise. Especially with point solutions and bespoke tools.
Is there a tag limitation in the growth license?
I think it's defaulted at 15,000 tags.
15,000 tags for the
But
growth
that,
license.
again, meets you where you're at. That's where that discussion starts coming in.
So rapid fire, have you been deployed in a regulated, validated environment?
Yes, we have been deployed in a regulated environment. We have an event part of the product that is actually, as you make changes to it, you're generating an event that's keeping track of that, like 21 CFR Part 11 stuff. Might not be 100%, but it's real close.
How hard was it to deploy the SESMI model, and which model did you pick? You picked the SM, right?
We picked the SM model, yeah. It took us like maybe an hour to build it and then minutes to deploy it.
So hour to deploy, and that's the generic machine model, the SM model.
Yeah.
As we approach application singularity, where every platform can do everything, how does Litmus fit on top of an existing Ignition, HiveMQ, and HiByte infrastructure? This is a very fair question.
Sure.
Difficult one to answer.
Sure. With Ignition, we work very well with that, right? We can be a Spark B end of node. So you can leverage an MQE broker. We can be an OPCUA server. We actually have a plugin, so if you already have Ignition as your drivers, we can bring the data in that. If we are the data structure and connectivity, then Ignition can pull data out and go both ways. And as we create digital twin models, like I showed you, those show up as UDTs in Ignition.
All right, and last question. What part of the ThingWorx Kepware functionality is Litmus not trying to
I think I should
compete
probably take this one. So ThingWorx is an application development stack, and then we try to use it for other things. Litmus is an industrial data foundation that provides value to application development stacks.
Let's give the guys a huge round of applause.
Thank you, everyone.
That was a very impressive presentation, really.
Thank you.